Hello, good morning. My name is Manoj and I'm from the Windows Core team. My today's blog will talk about how to enable Bitlocker using group policies, and I'll also talk a little bit about TPM. So to start with, let's see what is TPM actually. So Bitlocker actually stores its encryption and decryption keys in a hardware device which is called TPM, which is a trusted platform module, which is a security hardware. Um, it's actually a special microchip on some computers which has advanced security features. So when you use TPM, the keys are not stored on the computer hard disk. It is stored on the TPM chip itself. And you can enable TPM by going in the BIOS of the system, and you can go ahead and turn it on. You have to turn it on if you have to use TPM on a machine. So that's about TPM. So let's start. This machine is a Windows 7 client machine with RSAT tools installed. So let's open administrative tools and go to group policy management. So once the group policy management opens, you'll see I have created a policy called best practices for Bitlocker and Win 7, but you can choose whatever name you want. I have applied the policy at the OU level. You can apply the policy at the OU level or at the domain level or at the site level. So let's edit the policy and let's talk about in more details. So this is what we have. This is group policy management editor, and so under the computer configuration, expand the policies, expand administrative templates, expand Windows components, and you will see BitLocker drive encryption. So under BitLocker drive encryption, you will see 7 global policies and 3 policies with more granular options for Windows 7 operating systems. So in Windows Vista, the top 3 fixed data drives, operating system drive, and removable data drives was not available. We were only having these 7 policies. So let's start. So store BitLocker recovery information in Active Directory domains and services for Windows Vista. So this policy actually applies for only Windows Vista machine. So require BitLocker to backup ADDS recovery, and this is recovery information for Windows Vista. So next one is choose how users can recover BitLocker drives. Go ahead and enable it. Again, this is for Windows Vista and Windows Server 2008. The first one stores the information in Active Directory. The second one is used for recovery. Let's talk about the third one. Provide unique identifiers for your organization. This is not actually required. This is optional. This applies to Windows 7 family only, but I have enabled it. The help gives you much more information about what this policy can do and how can you use it. So I would definitely highly recommend that if you don't understand any policy, please go ahead and read the help first. It talks about it gives you much detailed explanation of the policy. So let's go to the next one, which is the fixed data drives. I have configured 2 policies out of the 5. So configure use of passwords for fixed data drives, enable required passwords for fixed data drives, allow password complexities, do not. So I have selected allow password complexities and minimum password length as to 8. You can set it whatever. You can change the values if you want. These are default values. So choose how BitLocker can protect fixed drives that can be recovered. This is again recovery. So allow data recovery agent. By default, if you enable this policy, you will have only these checkboxes. So go ahead and enable these last 2 checkboxes, which talks about do not enable BitLocker until recovery information is stored in Active Directory for fixed data drives. Go ahead and enable it. So the next one is operating system drives. So I have configured 4 policies out of 6. The reason for the 4 is because I have configured 1 policy which is for Vista as well. So require additional authentication at startup, and this is a little bit important policy because this is the way you will allow the users to enable TPM with PIN or TPM with startup key. So enable this policy, allow BitLocker without a compatible TPM. What does this mean is if your machine doesn't have a TPM chipset, still you can enable BitLocker, but in that case you will have to use TPM plus startup key. So if you're not sure that what the user will be selecting, you can do this. You can change all the policies to allow. This gives the user the complete option to select if he wants to use TPM and startup key or TPM plus pin. Because if you're not sure whether the machines have TPM or not, then this was the settings you want to do. If you're 100% sure that the policies are all your machines have TPM chipset and they will be using TPM plus pin, then you will use these settings. So change it back to do not allow for startup key. So only setting is configure TPM startup pin require. Require has much more high priority than allow. So make sure that when you select require, you understand that this is a little bit more importance than an allow. Allow gives an option to the user. Require is you have to have a TPM and pin now. So you force everybody to use TPM and pin in your environment. So we have much detailed information written in the help file, and this applies to Windows 7 family. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Require additional authentication startup at Windows Server 2008 and Vista. This is for Vista. So allow startup key with TPM, allow startup pin with TPM. Key and pin are different. So I have given allow for Vista machines. So allow enhanced pins. I have not configured this policy, but if you want to have alphanumeric pin, you can enable this policy. So the next policy talks about the pin length. So if you're using TPM plus pin, which is most recommended by Microsoft, you use TPM plus pin as the combination. Because if you use TPM plus startup key, every time a user boots his machine, he has to provide a USB flash drive for the startup key. If you use TPM plus pin, the information is saved on the TPM chipset, so you just have to enter a number as a pin and he can boot into the system. So this is the configure minimum pin length. The default is 4 and maximum is 20. So keep the minimum characters, means I have configured as 5, so you can have anything between 4 to 20. So choose how Bitlocker protected operating system drives can be recovered. So you go ahead and enable this policy, and again the same thing, omit and do not enable Bitlocker will not be selected. So go ahead and enable it. This is a recovery feature for operating system drives. So the next one is the removable data drives, which is also the Bitlocker to go. So go ahead and enable this policy, allow users to apply Bitlocker on the removable data drives. This is default settings. So go ahead and configure use of passwords for removable data drives. If you want to go ahead and do it, go ahead, enable it, and minimum password length is 8. So all default settings. Choose how Bitlocker protected drives can be recovered. This is a recovery feature. Make sure you go ahead and enable it, and by doing all the checkboxes, all default settings. So what we have done is we have enabled all the policies for Windows Vista and Windows 7 and from the group policy. One more thing to keep in mind is there's one more policy under system which talks about TPM. So go ahead and turn on TPM backup to Active Directory domains and services. This backs up your TPM information in Active Directory, which is the MS TPM owner info attribute in Active Directory. So go ahead and enable it. After you have done this, make sure you on the client machine run GPO update/force, and the new policies will be applied to the client machine. To view the existing policies, you can use rsop.msc resultant set of policies, or you can run a GP result on a client machine using a admin account, and make sure that the correct policies have been applied. And once the policies have been applied, you can go ahead and turn on Bitlocker on the client machine by going to Control Panel Applet. So that's it from my side. You guys have a wonderful day and good luck in configuring Bitlocker policy.